what caused me to stop what I'm doing and to record this YouTube is that the uh, the First Step Act and earned time credits and getting released early is on life support. And so Lisa Legal, which is a blog that comes out very frequently, I'm going to go through with you and I have it up. Hopefully, I have it large enough. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger and I'm going to read from it as much as I can so that, and I went ahead and I've put in red and blue and dark black because it's a little crazy. So we all know that now with the First Step Act, and if you go in and you're prepared and you understand the administrative remedy process, or if you have any grievances and you can work that out on your own to advocate for yourself, that through the First Step Act, and you could take programs, and the goal is that you reduce your criminogenic needs, and hopefully you're able to get out earlier and possibly spend a little bit more time in halfway house, and if things work out right, get home a little bit earlier. With us coming out of Thanksgiving, and for those that would have been lucky enough to have that timing be, coincidental, where you would have been home with loved ones, it would have been a great thing. It didn't work. And so let's just jump into this together. And so the article came out, Lisa Legal, it was all in black and green, but I've adjusted it for all of us, and hopefully you can read this. So shall means whenever it's going to be convenient now to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Before, the intent of the law was you get so many credits, then the Federal Bureau of Prisons will then apply those credits towards earlier release date or to get into a halfway house early, as long as you don't have disciplinary problems and everything, all the stars line up. And this federal law has been having problems since 2018. But this is getting a little crazy because now all of a sudden, and don't quote me, but instead of it being a regular law, it's turned into weasel words where they're using shall to the extent practical. That's not what the law was intended to mean, to the extent practical. It was supposed to mean that when you have these credits, then in the automatic calculator, which was supposed to have been done January of 2022, January of 2021, maybe January of 2023. So, to the extent practical, ensure that a prisoner serving a term of imprisonment spends a portion of the final months of that term, not to exceed 12 months, under conditions that will afford that prisoner a reasonable opportunity for the reentry of that prisoner into the community. Such may include a halfway house under the authority of the subsection may be used to place a prisoner in home confinement for the shorter of 10% of the term of imprisonment, or that's 6 months. But there ain't no guarantees. What does it mean? This wasn't to be like a question. The Second Chance Act had specifically targeted money so that we all understand that there was a limited amount of bed space in halfway houses, and that the money was to be spent, to be my understanding, and I could be wrong, for the Federal Bureau of Prisons to ensure that there was halfway house space, and for those individuals that had a very good record, that they could go into the halfway house and then transition, for those where the halfway house residential reentry managers were comfortable, to home confinement, still under the control of their residential reentry manager, the halfway house. But those funds were targeted a year ago. And so we will continue, because it says here, until the First Step Act, Section 3632 D4C, shall be applied toward time in pre-release custody or supervised release. The director of the Bureau of Prisons shall transfer eligible prisoners, as determined, into the pre-release custody or supervised release. And they added it in bold or italic emphasis, making it easier so that we would all understand today was Thanksgiving. Well, we just had Thanksgiving, so that no one would misunderstand that this was the intent of the law. So I'm covering up some more words. Let me move my picture here. Seems pretty mandatory. Yet, Lisa Legal had a plethora of emails where people had a lot of credits and they were being told that they're not allowed to go to the halfway house because they didn't have bed space to accommodate them. And they were just too busy to supervise them on home confinement. Really? In other words, the BOP says that shall transfer really means when they're ready. But they had to be ready. It wasn't like, it's kind of like when, when we're in prison and we have to get up for count. We can't say, well, we're not really ready to get up for count. You have to get up for count. And so that's what happened to this gentleman, Pazaru. I didn't pronounce it right. He was fighting with the BOP. Now, he understood the administrative remedy process. I put in here the 460 credit hours that he got, or days worth of credit. First, 460 credits. But that's how many he had on from his case. But he went ahead and he went through the administrative remedy process. How many attorneys out there I'm pretty confident that the majority of people going into prison don't understand how to use the administrative remedy process. I didn't understand it. I had a felony conviction in 2006. I'm grateful that I was able to get my license reinstated to practice in 2010, but I still didn't understand I didn't even know how to do it, the administrative remedy process. But here he was. And in answer to his 2241, which was the last step, the District Court of Maryland it was filed 10 days ago. The government provided legal justification. So what was the justification? The government noted that 18 U.S.C. 3620 provides that the BOP shall designate the place of the prisoner's imprisonment subject to bed availability and may designate any available penal or correctional facility that meets minimum standards of health and habitability established by the Bureau, considering the resources of the facility contemplated. The government also notes that 18 U.S.C. 3624 G11D states that the BOP shall ensure there is sufficient pre-release custody capacity to accommodate all eligible prisoners. Well, that sounds great, right? The government noted that 18 U.S.C. 3621 provides that the BOP shall designate the place of the prisoner's imprisonment subject to bed availability. We've already gone through that. Eligible prisoners. Excuse me. But the government claims nowhere do these statutes require that the BOP immediately transfer an inmate to pre-release custody. Rather, they provide that the BOP shall transfer an inmate to pre-release custody subject to bed availability and based on the capacity to accommodate all eligible prisoners through 18 U.S.C. 3624, 18 U.S.C. 3621. Well, guess what? I typed this in and I'm going to prove it to you. BOP was tasked with ensuring that with Second Chance Act funds, they were to go in part to halfway houses and the supervision of those on home confinement due to limited bed space. So I'm not crazy. I'm going to click on that. And hopefully this will come up over here. I don't know how long it's going to take, but there we go. And I don't know that I can make it bigger, but what I can do is bring down my picture. There we go. Fiscal year 2023 Second Chance Act community-based reentry programs. And these are this is the money that was through the Opportunity Bureau of Justice seeks applications for funding. Community-based nonprofit organizations, tribal. This is all to go for funding for halfway houses and reentry programs. So I'm not making this up. In other words, shall transfer really means shall transfer at any time up to the date of the prisoner's release date. And shall ensure there is sufficient pre-release capacity really means the B doesn't have to do it at all if there's not enough room. And whatever they did up here with the funds from the Second Chance Act, we don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's being spent or somehow, but I liken it to, you get caught with the hands in the cookie jar, or better yet, if you leave the chow hall with an extra apple and you get caught, they're going to try and write you up. It shouldn't be a big deal, but you still get in trouble. So the government now is going to try and hide behind under the skirt of this defense. The government's going to cloak its defense in the Chevron defense. I didn't know what it was, but they spell it out for us. It's a bedrock principle of administrative law that the courts defer to an agency interpretation of a statute when the agency has been charged with the responsibility for administering a provision by Congress. Here's a problem. However, Chevron deference only applies to an agency's interpretation of ambiguous statutes. That doesn't apply here. It will be up to the district court, in this particular case in Maryland, to determine whether the BOP shall transfer eligible prisoners into pre-release custody. Is ambiguous because it doesn't say when the BOP shall do it. Chevron deference is a doctrine on the Supreme Court chopping block for this term. So even if the government is right about ambiguity, the Chevron deference may be short-lived. And then it goes into a little bit of you shall being ambiguity. Ultimately, I just say ugh. And so, not to lose hope, as hard as it is to remain positive and optimistic, because eventually you will get out, but it's just one more thing that you have to have faith in the director, in the new director Peters, because she's doing her best. And unfortunately, she has an uphill fight against an institution that has been used to doing things their way. And so it's hard for her, I'm pretty sure, to make all these changes at the same time. But some of these are pretty basic. I'm not a lawyer, but I felt the need. I just had to do this YouTube. I hope you find this helpful and maybe it doesn't make you hopefully too crazy. But for those of you who are either in prison or loved ones who are in prison, it's probably time to understand the administrative remedy process. And for that, I have my contact information will be on this YouTube. I hope everyone is well and have a good day. And keep the faith.